All right, I'm going to call to order the 2,485th meeting of the Darien Police Commission. Next order of business, acceptance of minutes of October 24th and October 31st.
Second.
Any questions, comments? All right, hearing nothing else, all those in favor? Aye. Chief, correspondence?
Yes, several letters, positive letters of correspondence from our residents. First, we received a thank you from the Director of Activities at the YMCA for two of our officers who helped out with their fall carnival. This is this past weekend, but I think that was more like 3 weeks ago. So we appreciate hearing from them. Next, former Police Commissioner John Reardon had an occasion to speak with Officer Michael Cummings, who responded to a family member request of his and said he not only was Officer Cummings professional, but he did a great job and he was glad he was there for handling a minor incident that went on over there. Next, we received a thank you note from a Birch Road resident who was victim of a burglary a few weeks back, and they complimented the whole shift that was working that evening. That would be Sergeant Schwanger, Officer Arrett, Officer E. Vigil, Officer Flood, Officer Cusano, and Officer Ackerman. As I mentioned, they had a break-in, and they were very happy with the genuine care, professionalism, and the difference that they made in what was otherwise an unsettling night for them. So we're happy to hear from them. And a great job to those officers. We also received a thank you note from a Delafield Island Road resident who, Officer Noto, responded to their home in an unusual situation in which their dog was going through some duress, and he was able to free the dog from an entanglement type situation, and they believe that he saved the dog's life. So they were very appreciative and made a very significant donation to the Darien Police Association. So we thank the residents of Delafield Island Road, and we're glad their dog made out okay. Next, we received a gift from the estate of George Peterkin. I'm not familiar with the Peterkin family, but we're very appreciative of the family and their consideration in donating to the police department. And that donation was turned over to the town to be applied to the gift fund. Thank you to the Peterkin family. And next, Officer Gorton was reached out, an individual that Officer Gorton dealt with about 5 years ago, wrote a thank you note and wanted to get a picture with him for the great work he did one night in assisting her going through a difficult time back then. And she believes that the difference he made in her life saved her life, and she wanted to come and re-meet him again and thank him in person. So we always like to hear those types of stories, and it gives the officers an idea of how important their work actually is day in and day out. So good job, excellent job, Officer Gordon. And lastly, another resident from town reached out and had lunch dropped off to us this past week, just as a general thanks for the work that we do, and we're very appreciative of the recognition that that resident gave us. So thank you to Mr. Henneberry. And that does it for correspondence.
Well, that was a good list. Thank you to all that were recognized in that. Next, department activity, Captain?
Yep, for the period of October 24th through today, several notable incidents. During the spring of 2024, officers from the Patrol Division responded to 2 separate larcenies that occurred at Stop and Shop, our Good Wives Shopping Center. The Detective Bureau, working in concert with the Greenwich Police Department, identified 2 suspects, a female from Bridgeport and a male from Stamford. An arrest warrant was granted, and both suspects were arrested during the first week of November. On July 25th of this year, officers responded to a motor vehicle theft at a residence on Holly Lane, where the victim reported that his vehicle was stolen, which contained his wallet and credit cards. The vehicle was later found unoccupied at another residence on Holly Lane, where another victim reported that their vehicle was then stolen. A comprehensive investigation identified a male suspect from Bridgeport who was linked to multiple thefts and fraudulent activities in the area. An arrest warrant was submitted and granted, and the subject was arrested on November 7th. In March of 2023, officers responded to a residential burglary on Saltbox Lane, where a lockbox containing $11,000 in cash and jewelry worth over $24,000 was stolen. In November 2023, the Connecticut State Lab developed a DNA profile from one piece of evidence collected at the crime scene, which was later matched to a Queens, New York resident. An arrest warrant was granted, and the suspect was arrested on November 5th. On November 11th, at approximately 2:46 p.m., patrol officers responded to a report of a stolen vehicle at a local car wash on Post Road. Officers arrived to find that a 2024 BMW X5 had been taken while waiting to be dried after completing its wash. The victim reported that an unknown vehicle traveling eastbound on Post Road stopped in front of the BMW. Two male suspects then exited the suspect vehicle, entered the BMW, and drove off. No weapons were displayed or mentioned during the incident. It should be noted that the next day, our DB tracked that vehicle in Flushing, New York, and subsequently that vehicle was recovered and an arrest was made of a 19-year-old suspect. Some statistics: domestic disturbance incidents, 0. Identity theft incidents, 3. Motor vehicle burgs, total of 2 unlocked. Stolen motor vehicles, 2. Motor vehicle accidents, 30, 4 with an injury, 1 involving pedestrian bicyclist, 5 on private property. Traffic stops, 106. Calls for service, 941. Traffic Officer Bug conducted joint enforcement campaigns with Norwalk, New Canaan, and Wilton PD on October 28th, October 30th, and November 20th, targeting problem traffic areas in those towns and Darien. The department conducted a high-visibility patrols on Mischief Night, Halloween, and Election Day with no reports of criminal or malicious activity. And lastly, the training division has had a successful rollout of new firearms for all personnel during firearms fall qualifications. The handguns are now equipped with red dot sights and flashlights.
I think the joint enforcement is a terrific idea. I know we've done that in years past. You had mentioned, Chief. Is that something that we're done with for I guess the year is coming to an end anyway, but are we contemplating doing that again next year or TBD?
I think it's going to be something we're going to just continue with. All 4 police departments are recognizing the benefit that it provides to the individual towns and the traffic safety component that it is really providing. In fact, we were supposed to be out there today with those police departments, but we called it due to weather. But they were in Darien yesterday, and there was 36 additional traffic stops made in various sections of town that wouldn't have otherwise been made. I think the program is working out really well, and as I mentioned before, there's a mutual compact in place that allows us to work with Norwalk, Wilton, and New Canaan police departments. So we take turns in targeting hotspots, so to speak, in our respective jurisdictions, and the officers get to know each other. It's a great networking opportunity for all 4 police departments, and it's having an impact. So I think we'd like to see this program continue, and I know the officers are having some great success.
I think it's a great idea.
One other thing I wanted to point out, and I sound like a broken record when I commend the detective division for their follow-up work, and I'm going to commend them again here. But in recent weeks, we have had some incidents occur, and of course, social media in town takes off, and inaccuracies are spread like the game of telephone. And a lot of times, the embellishment of the incident makes it seem like something it wasn't. And not only are these incidents, nothing's helping, but people are asking, what is the Darien Police Department doing? How can we let this type of thing happen in our town? How can cars be stolen? A lot of people don't understand how we're limited and how we can respond to these incidents. But here's a perfect example. Last week, when a car got stolen from the car wash, that came in across social media and in moms groups and in other platforms that it was an armed robbery at gunpoint, which was completely inaccurate. And they wanted to know how the Darien Police Department let that happen and what are we doing about it. Well, the real story is that there were no weapons involved, but we stayed actively investigating that incident until we knew that an arrest was made and no further harm could be committed. So not only is it just the detective division following up, but it's our initial patrol response as well. Our officers that initially take those responses to these calls, if they don't handle those incidents properly from the start, it really kind of puts us behind the eight ball on what the detective division can do in a follow-up kind of part of the investigation. So great work by our patrol officers responding, and great work by our detective division following up on, as you can see, on incidents that I'm sure we reported in previous police commission meetings. And, you know, a lot of these end with investigation continuing or investigation ongoing. Well, here's 4 of them that are wrapped up with arrests made that I'm sure most of the residents forgot about, but we're pretty concerned about when they actually happen. So good work on all of our staff in these incidents.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I want to go back to March of 2023 where these things are brought to closure across the town. Yeah.
I wish we could be everywhere at once. We can't, but this is, yeah, I agree. That's 4 good bullet points right here. So please commend the Detective Bureau, because I'm sure they're not watching us. Okay, any other questions on department activity? All right. We do have members of the public here, which isn't always the case for us, but I am going to open it up to public comment. I'm going to limit it to 2 to 3 minutes per person, and I will say 2 things. If you've already commented on something, we probably have it in the minutes, and I do have a stack of emails on, I think all of these are on the Thorndale Circle question. So if you send us an email, we got it, we read it, it was distributed, so you don't need to either read the email or comment in addition to that. But I am.
It's just something new that we haven't
Yeah.
heard before.
I wasn't here at the October 3rd meeting, but I know a lot of people had public comment at that meeting.
And you watched.
Well, yes, no, I did. I just wasn't sitting here. Anyway, if anybody would like to speak, we'd be happy to hear from you.
I have some questions, not about the farm.
Go right ahead.
Great. The first one.
Can you just say your name and your address so that it can,
Sure. Julia Schaefer, 741 Hollow Tree Ridge Road.
excellent.
Wanted to follow up. Back in September, I had come to the meeting and I had asked about Connecticut House Bill 5917, which has automatic ticketing of speeding cars as to augment and supplement the speeding enforcement that's done in town. At the time, no one had been aware of that or towns that had implemented that. In parallel, I'm researching that with John Zagroski, our first selectman, to see if that's something that we could pursue in town. But I was just curious if you had heard any feedback from other towns or had heard anyone who has successfully implemented cameras with that program. That was the first question I had. The second question was, I was actually hoping to get data from the dynamic speed sign that was up on Hollow Tree Ridge Road, but I saw that had been recently taken down, so I assume that that's under repair again. And then the third, just now, Chief Mayor, you had mentioned that the police department is limited in what can be done when there are incidents in town. And if there are recommendations that the police department has that as citizens we can advocate our state or federal legislature in order to make your job easier or more effective, please share that with the public so that, we have election cycles and would love to make sure that, you feel supported as you're going out there to protect the families that are in town. So those are the 3 points.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Russell, 18 Fitch Avenue. I did send in my letter, I hope you all received it, my comments on Thorndale Circle. I have 2 things. One, will we be able to ask questions when the Thorndale Circle item comes up on your agenda?
Ask questions to us?
Yes,
Sure, I guess.
under the Thorndale Circle.
It's not to be brief, but
Yeah, just probably for clarification. Second thing is, how many roads in Darien have fog lines on them?
I do not know the answer to that question, but I'm writing it down.
I don't know if we would give you an
that
exact
question.
answer to that, but a lot of the roads, many of the roads in town do have fog lines.
Well,
And some of them have been redone on like Tokenique Road and others to actually narrow the road further for speed management.
okay, so then they're not bicycle lanes.
they're not bicycle lanes.
Okay, so the post road has lines. Those are fog lines?
Correct.
To squish in the road?
I don't know if we have any bicycle lanes in town, dedicated bicycle lanes.
Okay,
I don't know of that. Do
okay.
we?
Not to my
Not
knowledge,
to
no.
my knowledge.
Not with the bicycle.
Not that we've approved, certainly in the
Take it
11
on
years
the
that I've
road
sat
to
here.
say, this area is, like in Stanford, they have them on Oak Street. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing nobody, let's get on with our agenda and we will double back. Old business?
Julie, we'll have to get back to you on some of those questions.
Okay.
Beach Drive and Outlook, the request for stop sign. I thought we were still doing some work on that. Are we?
Is there any reason why we wouldn't do it? I went there 3 or 4 times afterwards, and I just don't see any reason why we wouldn't.
I think the only thing that came up was the reasons the resident was hoping to have a stop sign put up there did not necessarily meet the MUTCD requirements. And so we were still looking into that, and I think Captain Hedema was kind of spearheading that, and I don't believe the resident is here for that topic. So I don't know how we want to go further with that.
Well, if we're still looking into the regs, let's, and the resident isn't here, there's no downside to at least kicking the tires for 3 more weeks, 2 more weeks whenever we meet. Is that all right?
Sounds good.
All right,
Have you all been down there?
yeah. Okay. The MOU between the Darien Police Department and the school security officers.
This looks good, Chair.
Yeah, as the commission knows, we were presented with a proposal and how we would liaison with the school security officers that are newly put in place in the school system in town. We had some concerns with some of the language in the MOU. We kicked it back to our administration and some of the stakeholders here at the police department that would be involved in that. They gave some feedback. We re-proposed the document, sent it off to the Board of Ed, and they approved it. So I would make the recommendation to the commission to approving my signing that as the other half of the memorandum of understanding for the MOU between the Darien Police Department and the school security, Darien Police Department and Darien Public Schools.
Board of Ed.
Looks really good, Chair.
Yeah, I
Well
thought it
done.
was excellent.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we approve the memorandum of understanding as presented to us and signed by Superintendent Adley on November 19th.
Second.
Any questions, Brent?
Nope, that's it.
All those in favor? Excellent. Okay, building issues update?
Nothing new to report.
Wow. The rainy day
Last
just got
time
a
I said
little
that-
sunnier.
Last time I said that, so no.
You check for leaks today?
I will quickly move on before he changes his mind. Okay, traffic issues. DOT improvement project at Hollow Tree in Middlesex.
We were approached by State DOT regarding a project that I think is a new kind of a program that they have implemented in kind of bolstering safety at intersections on the municipal level, excuse me. I don't think that's been done in town before, so we looked at it kind of closely and raised an eyebrow. We threw a couple questions back to them. They gave us a lot of information back. This week I asked again for a little bit more data, some of the reasoning behind adding additional stop signs and other types of signage, and we are still waiting to hear back on their response.
Nothing back from this.
Nothing back since
These are
that,
reasonable
yeah.
questions, like.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm interested to hear what they have to say. All right, well, we'll keep at it, and when we hear back from them, we can revisit it. Anything else on that? All right. Thorndale Circle project, which I think is why many people are here. And we do have our traffic consultant here, but I do want to take just a second before we dive into this, being our second meeting that we have tackled this. People in the correspondence talked about we should vote no and we should reject this. I just want to be clear that The Legal Traffic Authority, we don't take an official vote on anything before us from Planning and Zoning. This is the same for any and all applications that come via Planning and Zoning. It's really their application. They are the ultimate deciders. But as with any application that involves a traffic element or public safety element, we are asked for our comments. There are obviously many items that come to us directly and we vote on. This is not one of those occasions, so we absolutely will be providing comment, but we are not accepting or rejecting. It's Planning and Zoning's responsibility to oversee the application and the project. Greg is here presenting to us in a few minutes. He is working for us. He is hired by the town. He's a traffic consultant. He will introduce himself. But I just want to, again, put a fine point on, he's hired by the town to provide us with an independent, he's a resource for us to help us understand the reports that any applicant puts forward. We are certainly expert, I've said this many times in my time here, we are definitely experts in traffic, but we are not traffic experts. There are many times we feel very comfortable relying on the chief and the captains and whether it's Officer Bud, anybody who we can rely on in our own department to advise us on all traffic matters. That being said, we are also very happy and quick to call in further experts when the situation arises, and it's kind of beyond what we're comfortable relying on them for. So that's just two things. We've heard, obviously, I have a stack for public comment. You guys were here on October 3rd. We've had the opportunity to email back and forth with Greg, and we thought it would be very helpful for us as a commission who does provide comment to Planning and Zoning, but to have him present his findings, his thoughts, answer any last questions we have before we send our comments back to Planning and Zoning. So that's the next thing on my agenda, is to hear from you about what has come across your desk. And again, we've been going back and forth on questions we've had, questions the public's had. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to turn it over to you to chat to us, and you can introduce yourself, who you are, and all of the rest.
Sure, thanks. So I'm Greg Del Rio, professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. I'm the director of transportation engineering at RC in Hanover, H&H. We have offices in Norwalk and New Haven in Connecticut. And we are the traffic, transportation, and planning consultants for the town of Darien. We have been for several years. I myself have been involved for the last 3 years in this role as the project manager, so I'm the one that usually picks up the call. And we have a couple of staff members here in Connecticut that have been working in and around Darien for even longer than I have. So that's a little bit of background. We perform, the majority of our work with the town is the peer reviews of applications for developments. But every now and then we do look at, some issues that, if there's a traffic issue and a spot of concern, we give some feedback and sort of an over-the-shoulder type of look at things. So regarding Glendale Circle development, again, we did the peer review. We've been involved for several months now. And really what we're looking at is, the applicant's traffic study and findings and results, and see if everything, makes sense.
You also analyze some of the underlying assumptions that the...
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, and that's kind of to build off of what he was saying earlier. The LTA, the cops, the police know what they're looking at in terms of safety, in terms of speeding, and sort of operational issues. Probably the biggest help that we provide is when there's a change of land use, how are things going to change because of that change in land use? So we come in with trip generation, estimates of traffic, right? How is that? Patterns of traffic, how is that going to change? What types of vehicles, what types of are things going to change? Are people more likely to come by bicycle or by transit because of the type and because of the location? If you're near Norotan Heights, for example, right? You're a different sort of mode split, which is, do I take a car or do I walk or do I bike to the station or to the development? And then we come up with sort of realistic estimates of the future, right? And try and assess what impacts there may be and what benefits there may be. And if there's impacts, what are things that can be done? Is it as simple as signal timing changes? Are there deficiencies in the infrastructure where they're missing crosswalks or bike lanes or some type of facility that might be warranted? So those are the types of, that's how we sort of complement what the rest of the town and the team is doing, really, right? We really work as a team. So again, with that said, with this application, we've now gone through, I'll call it almost 2.5 cycles. There were 2 cycles of reviews. We reviewed the first traffic study, and what I can say is, in general, our findings were consistent with, we really didn't have anything of significance as far as comments go. Most of our comments were technical, and a few of the comments were actually on the site plan itself, just the circulation and, being able to move within the site, not so much outside the site. We really concurred with almost everything we did. Again, there were a few T's, crossed and I's to dot, and they resubmitted a second iteration of the traffic report, which we took a look at again, and they pretty much satisfactorily addressed all the comments. And then, because of some of this concern with Hecker, they also provided sort of a third memo letter, which did a comparison. The site plan, as proposed, has 2 access points. It has the existing one on Thorndale, and then it's proposing a new access, just a little bit west of the police department driveway here on Hecker. And then based on that, they redistributed the traffic for the new development. So let's go back a step here and just major findings. The really big finding for the whole transportation system is that, on full build out, compared to the existing office spaces, if they were fully occupied, and even at what they are now, they're about 65% occupied. The proposed development at full build out will generate less traffic overall than the office use. So that's number one, and that's kind of big, right?
At 65%, or if the office was full?
Actually. So, right, so if you're less than 65, you're almost even around 65%, a little less, and you're way less actually than if the full build out, the offices were fully occupied.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so I'll just take a look here. At 63% occupancy, the driveway, was 44 in with the low-rise and the 2 entrances, it's 11. 8 out versus 18 out, so a total of 52 trips for the office buildings at 63% compared to 29%. Now that 29 trips versus 52 trips. That's with Hecker, so there is a few more trips that's going out Hecker. And then in the PM, it's about the same, 49 total trips with the 63% versus 47 coming out of Thorndale with the residential development. Again, there would be a little more traffic coming out of Hecker, but that comparison to Thorndale is the same. So overall, traffic is lower with the fully occupied office space, and just about the same with the 62%, which was out there today. So I thought that was a big place to start, that overall volumes on the roadways, and that's not just on the peak hours, that's on a daily basis as well. Office, just picture office versus residential in the middle of the day. During lunch, office has trips going in and out. Residential generally does not have many trips going in and out. When we do traffic studies, if it's 100% residential, we usually don't even look at lunchtime in the middle of the day. For office and retail, we look at a, 12 to 2 o'clock timeframe. So we do 3 peak periods in a weekday for office and retail. For residential, we usually just do AM and PM because that's the peak for residential. On Hecker, so then the second finding was the comparison of with Hecker access and without Hecker access. The other thing to be aware of is the original proposal did not allow left turns into that new driveway. So if you're going eastbound, if you're coming off of 95 or you're coming from your own Heights, you're coming down Hecker westbound towards the police station, you can't make a left into this new driveway. You'd have to continue to Boston Post Road, make the left, and then make the left into Thorndale. So that doesn't get affected whether there's a new driveway or not. What does get affected is the exiting traffic going westbound from this new driveway, which would drain, if you didn't have that, it takes some of the pressure off the Thorndale exit, right? The Thorndale intersection that will now use Hecker. That increment is very slight. So the comparison is hold on 1 second. I wanted to quote one number before I got into that. I'm not finding it was less than 10 trips of a difference. Here it is. With their Hecker Avenue, without it, it would generate 8 less trips in the morning and 5 less trips in the afternoon westbound. Then eastbound wouldn't be affected because you can't make the left into it anyway. So there's no change in the way we would have assigned the traffic eastbound. We're only adding with Hecker driveway, we're adding 8 trips in the morning and 5 trips in the afternoon. So it's a very small increment. Now, getting back to the comparison with the existing office space, at full occupancy, it was basically you're going to see less traffic on Hecker going in both directions, all periods of the day, except westbound in the morning. The existing office space would have put about 60 total trips, not from the development, total trips on the road, 60, versus 71. So there'd be about 11 more trips in the morning westbound. In PM, there's about 120 with the office trips versus 101 with Hecker being there and the residential.
So if you're talking total volume, there would
Total
be,
volume on the road, 120 trips going.
but if you're taking both AM and PM, it's actually fewer with residential, because you add both of those together.
Correct.
So you're having fewer cars on the road, regardless of,
Whether the driveway's there or not.
okay,
You got it. And then eastbound in the morning with the office was 61. We're projecting that goes down to 52. And eastbound in the PM stays about the same, 128 vehicles on that section of the road. So there's really not a perceivable, these are, even the differences themselves, plus or minuses, are pretty small differences. So that was that finding. We already went over the total volume of existing versus, the office versus residential, and then, so that's traffic and circulation and volume and demand. We always like to have, if we can, distribution from the traffic world. That's just a purely traffic thing, right? Instead of one point load at one space, if you can spread it out a little bit, that's better. So for the trips that are going in and out of Hecker, that need to get to Thorndale, they are using 2 legs, right? You're using the leg from Thorndale to Hecker, and then from Hecker to where the new driveway would be. So that's traffic that you're eliminating if you have the new driveway that now is just going up Hecker.
at the intersection specifically.
Right, exactly. And the links that lead to them, between the 2
Yeah,
driveways.
of course.
Right, you're reducing some of the traffic on those links, and you're giving people a choice. So, there's some benefits there. Again, these are sort of small numbers and minor, but there's that, every little bit. So the next point is safety. So if you look at some of the crash data, the segment between Thorndale and 95 has the highest amount of crashes. Not hard to envision that, it's sort of intuitive. For the 3 years, there were 19 crashes along that stretch. But more importantly is what's happening at Thorndale Circle and then Hecker itself. So Thorndale is unsignalized. So there is some difficulty making left turns in and out of Thorndale, especially during the peak hours. There weren't a lot of crashes over the 4 years. There were 4 crashes, but 3 out of the 4 had some injury. So they were injury crashes, and you guys know all about that. The segment, there is no driveway on Hecker, so there's no intersection crash at Hecker today. However, the segment between basically the police driveway and, where is it? Let me get this right. Hecker Avenue between US 1 and Freight. So not even the police driveway from Boston Post Road to Freight Court was 3 accidents in the 3 years, but all of them were property damage. And some of them, 2 out of the 3 were fixed objects and rear ends. The 4 crashes that happened at US 1 and Thorndale, all 4 of those were angled crashes. So in terms of severity, even though the numbers are almost the same, 4 versus 3, they were more severe on the Thorndale Circle. So again, alleviating some of that pressure and left turns, bringing it over to, making that option it's going to help a little bit.
Did you do an analysis of the crashes between the PD and 95 on Hecker? I would imagine that the vast majority, if not all of them.
All those segments are in here, yeah.
But did you do an analysis of the crashes there? Because I would imagine all of them are at the stop sign to 95. I can't imagine why you would.
This is, again, we're peer reviewing their data. These
Okay.
are summary tables, so SLR would have that.
I can't imagine why you would crash on that
And they
straightaway.
could look at that.
Okay.
But like I said, the 4 were
Yeah.
angled crashes.
Unless you're texting and driving.
Right.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with traffic.
All the ones here at Hecker, most of them, hold on, I do have that here. Are you asking at Hecker and Boston Post Road?
No, I'm asking from the police department driveway.
Yeah.
You said there were, between the 3-year period, there were 19 crashes?
No, that was on Boston Post Road.
4.
There were 4 crashes between the PD driveway and 95 entrance.
I think he said 3.
There were 4?
No. Hold on, let's go back to your tape here. All right,
From the post road to Freight Court, you said there was 3.
correct.
And then how about west of Freight Court?
West of Freight Court, I'm not sure they have that in this.
Okay.
So it's Freight Court to 95.
Yeah, the stop sign.
Is the question where the stop sign
I mean,
is.
any accident would be at that stop sign, right?
Never know.
It certainly wouldn't be because of traffic, right? It's
Well,
not
on that stretch of road, 1 was an angle and 2 was a fixed object, so that's somebody
Okay, so not
probably just
traffic.
ran off the road.
That's my point, not traffic. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So only 1 was 2 vehicles involved.
Okay.
Got it. So that was the safety discussion. I talked about the longer distance, which again, is very minor, does longer trips, but it is some congestion, it is air quality. Emergency response, obviously with that Hecker driveway, there's another option for emergency response to access the site from a different location. There's a benefit there. There was the discussion about the fog lines, so I'll just mention a good place to look at the difference of fog lines is West Avenue. As you go over Hollow Tree Ridge Road, east of Hollow Tree Ridge Road, there is no fog lines. West of Hollow Tree Ridge Road, there is a fog line. If you want to, on one street, feel the difference, that would be probably a good.
So from Hollow Tree to essentially the Stanford line, there are fog lines there.
There's fog
Yeah.
lines. Yep, and I think the width of the street more or less stays the same.
Correct.
So you can get a feel for how that.
That's a good tip.
goes. So that was my general overview, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I know it's a little murky, it's hard to do without a presentation.
I think,
No,
Greg,
no,
you-
because we have all the documents, so we're,
So Greg, you answered a number of my questions. Let me just fire quick ones at you here. So it sounds like, generally speaking, or overall, you agree with the traffic assessment as a peer review? Okay. Do you have any issue, you touched upon this a little bit, but just to be very clear, do you have any issue with the traffic between, you have the library here? We sometimes have people trying to park here these days. So between the library and emergency response time coming out of here, we're generally out on the road, but there have been times between different shifts where maybe we have to exit here pretty quickly. So are you worried about any of the queuing that could come up from, traffic queue from the post road to the police station?
No.
Nothing at all?
No, yeah. It's going to be hard to perceive the difference, to be honest.
That it would come, okay, with the library traffic?
Yeah.
Okay. Did the overall report sufficiently take into account the potential traffic on Hecker Avenue between Darien Commons and Heights Crossing, which is not finished yet, right? And I think most of the people that would cut through to the downtown would probably be on Ledge Road. But that being said, you can cut through on Hecker. Did it take into account those two developments as well? Do you have any
Yes.
concerns with that?
Yep, and that was part of the peer review comments. We went and I made some modifications to some of the background.
He did note that in the report.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the no-build trips.
I just want to ask, I just want to be clear, because I
know.
know this is something that came up with the public. I want to make sure everybody's aware of that, so,
Yep.
okay.
And that's the second round of comments. We had a little bit of, again, some technical comments that need to be made there, but I'm
Okay.
not going to change.
So you don't have any concerns with the peer review analysis at the end of the day?
Correct.
Okay.
comments, questions, anyone?
I know some residents brought up school children, buses. I think I addressed that last time. Jay, you had addressed that, and if you've looked at that analysis, then that's been sufficiently answered for me, at least.
You guys good? While we
I
have
mean, I think
Greg
the only
sitting
thing I
here.
would add and want to be on record with is, even though coming this way on Hecker Avenue, you're not supposed to take a left into the development, it's going to happen. We've seen that. And I think that if that continues to happen, or if they use our driveway, if they use the library's driveway to turn around, we're going to have to address that down the road somehow.
In your experience with a similar setup to this, to the chief's point, have you seen people, maybe there isn't a similar setup, I don't know, but in your experience, do you see people, trying to make that U-turn, or, coming into driveways, neighboring driveways, or we just don't know?
In the real world, look, they're doing what they can as far as designing, right? They're putting a physical island in there with deflection. So they're trying to make it as hard to make that. You would kind of have to make a U-turn, not really a left turn, to get in there, so.
It's just a bit of a blind curve there, so, yeah.
Yeah, there's not much more you can do to deter that type of activity. If the road was wider, maybe you could put a median, in there, but, and then that would have to be mountable anyway, because the fire trucks would have to get in. So those are always tough issues with any development.
But in your opinion, they've engineered it so
Yeah,
that
they've definitely-
it is going to be very difficult
Yeah.
to not physically damage your car taking a left there.
Right, certainly the larger SUVs will have
Not
trouble.
gonna
It's a
happen.
pretty narrow road to begin with. So
And it is in front of the
make a
police
U-turn on
department, so you'd
Hecker,
be-
I don't think you can
You'd be pretty stupid to try to do it anyway, but okay.
So,
Well, these days.
yeah, and you guys have blocked off your driveway well, so hopefully that doesn't happen too.
That's brand new.
You can park
We've had
there,
to
Greg.
do that.
Thank you, Greg.
Yes. All right, no problem.
I don't have any questions because I've been talking to Greg and have a stack of emails back and forth. But any other questions before we chat? I mean, I have my sense is that based on the study of 2 traffic engineers, one for the applicants and one independent hired by the town, there's nothing that I have that would override
I
what
think we
they
had
say.
a number of questions last time, which Jay came back to us with, right before
Yeah.
the last meeting. We had an opportunity to analyze that. Greg, you concur with that, so I don't have
But
any other
we will have to
questions.
draft our comments. Planning and zoning doesn't just take what we say here. We will actually produce a document. But I do want to say in public session that there are a couple of things, and again, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what the unintended consequences might be, but I do want to put, as we are drafting, as I look to our drafters, if there are excessive abuses of the left-hand turn signs, if people are turning into the police station, if there is the buildup at Hecker where we find that in public safety, our response time is impacted, that I would have planning and zoning revisit it, whether the exit on Hecker becomes exit only, or, I don't know what else could be done at the time, but there are things that, even though I read their engineering traffic study, and I totally appreciate, Greg, the hard work and all the back and forth and all the questions that you answered for us, there are just things that we can't foresee. So I think in our comments, we will not have anything big to say, but we will just highlight the things that still worry us a little bit, and that we would appreciate planning and zoning thinking about them in the future if we come back and there are issues to be fixed. Anything else? We will do a draft, and I don't know if it will come back to this group or it will just be, I think, Jerry, you just send it over to Jeremy, who has requested us to weigh in, and we will. All right. Does that work for everybody?
Can I ask a question?
You can.
Thank you. Is this traffic study the one that planning and zoning was waiting for? Are you the traffic guy that's supposed to put this in the file?
Well, right, we review the report that the applicant's traffic engineers.
Right, so you had questions and you had it in the file before?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is what we've been waiting,
Yeah.
residents have been waiting for to
Right,
see.
right.
So we have not had an opportunity to read this traffic report. And I think it's important that the residents get to read this, but we will take it up with planning and zoning. So it is in the file now, so if I go there on Monday,
Yeah.
it'll be there. Okay.
You can double back. I mean, I have what we've been provided.
It's kind of hard to
Yeah.
run through this and not see
Yeah,
a plan.
right.
But what I'm trying to understand is, you basically are saying that there's only a few cars coming out from this 175 apartment buildings all day long. You looked at the plan all day long and on weekends. Their traffic study didn't say anything about weekends.
There's no weekend analysis. They don't usually do a weekend analysis on a residential only development because there's usually,
This back.
there's no, right?
No, they didn't do that. So what we're concerned about is all the traffic coming out on weekends, and I mentioned it in my letter, on when there are children in there, and going to the sports every Saturday and Sunday, and going up Hecker to get to Middlesex and the high school. So that's where traffic is going to be all weekend long. And from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, there's traffic when there's children. Right now, there are 30 children in Avalon. 15 of them approximately take the bus to Tokenique. Approximately 18 others either walk to Middlesex and the high school because they don't have a bus or their parents drive them. So there's 30, well, the bus takes 15. So there's 15 cars leaving at any one time in the morning to go up Hecker and go to Middlesex or the high school, and the nursery school that's being built down there in the Heights, and other nursery schools. So I'm very concerned about the amount of traffic when this 175 units are filled. I mean, even if one person lives in every unit, that's 175 people coming and going every day. If they're not going to the train, they're going to 95. And the quickest way to get to 95 is Hecker Avenue.
We just heard the data, that's completely incorrect. Everything you just said is not right.
This is,
I know, I don't understand how you can have 175 units and have
Right,
5
but this
cars
isn't-
coming out of Lake
You're
County.
going to have to look at the data. Just
Yeah.
please read the data.
Okay.
So is there any other public comment, or?
well, so I believe planning and zoning is continued until, what, December 9th?
Ninth.
So if you can't get what we're holding, contact us and we'll, but it should be.
It's on the website.
It's on the
It's
website.
posted.
So, okay. We will do our part and then it's back to planning and zoning.
I have a quick follow-up question on the fog lines. Is that something that's open to getting more fog lines around town generally? Like, if that's like a known thing to help, and you had mentioned specifically on Middlesex, like where it starts and stops, is that something that the town can look into as far as, like, what would be the, is this the path or is this the forum for that discussion? Or is
Probably
that-
not the police commission, but Captain Hidema is back in 5 weeks, end of December. I don't know when she's back. But anyway, if you have a specific road that you're concerned about, if you can
Great.
hold it. Yeah, definitely, police commission, we approve them ultimately, but usually the discussion about whether you want them, whether your neighbors want, the discussion usually starts with a traffic analysis and with Captain Hidema, who's in charge of, so.
Yeah, you can
contact
send
her.
me the information, I'll take a
Yeah.
glance at it, and then when she returns, I'll follow up with her.
In all honesty, we get more requests for residents trying to remove lines from the roads than anything else.
Why, I mean, you said that, like, I don't.
Any type of paint on a roadway tends to commercialize a neighborhood, and most residents are not in agreement with having even a double yellow line. I don't think we do single yellow lines anymore.
No, the state
Just
doesn't
right.
allow us, but,
Yeah. So most of the time you see fog lines are on state roads in towns like Darien. In the case of West Avenue, that tends to be like an emergency evacuation route out of town and into town. That's connected to I-95, so I'm pretty sure that's why part of, that section of it at least has
correct.
some fog lines. Not
It's
positive.
interesting because specifically Hollow Tree Ridge Road, I know I brought up, like, can we get traffic signs or other things, and we said, no, we can't because it's a state road, so it's interesting that it's almost used against, I don't know. But
Well, Hollow Tree is not a state road.
Hollow Tree is not a state?
No.
road?
No.
Okay,
Mansfield is.
Mansfield. Okay, well, I'll send a note.
Okay, new business hiring update.
Yep, the 3 candidates we currently have, one successfully passed
Great,
all the
thank you.
steps in the hiring process. For an entry-level position as a police officer, she has a scheduled swearing-in date, as you know, is December 16th, and she'll be starting the academy January 3rd. The second candidate just completed the polygraph examination, and the results are pending. And the third candidate is scheduled for a polygraph examination on December 5th. As far as our dispatchers go, we had one candidate successfully pass. Well, she's up to the background check right now, but we don't anticipate any issues. We're hoping that she will be beginning her first shift in December. And animal control successfully passed all the steps in the hiring process, and they're scheduled to start December 2nd.
Captain, then we have one more for January, right? We'll have an opening in January, and then also, where do we stand with the sergeant promotional test?
So the promotional test is scheduled 2 dates, broken down to a written and a oral. So we have December 3rd for the written, and I believe the 13th is
Friday
going to
the
be the oral.
13th.
So we could potentially interview by the end of the year?
Yeah.
Hoping to.
Get a
yeah.
promotion by that time, yeah. Be a good holiday gift for somebody.
That would be nice, and it would be nice to get to full strength.
Yeah, and then January
For the
1.
moment.
Then we're back at it.
January 1, right?
But we'll have a
Some more
list.
interviews.
But we'll have a list, yeah. So, okay. That is the end of the agenda, although it's a regular meeting. If anyone wants to slap on something else, we are happy to. You good?
I'd just like to real quick thank Captain Mastriani and all the work he's been doing with the various areas of the department and the hiring process. He's got a great staff. It's never easy. We are always looking for the best candidates in any of those types of positions, and he's been doing a really good job.
Yeah, you sent some great
Agreed.
candidates. Thank you.
Agreed. Okay, that leaves us to our next meeting, and I'm embarrassed to say I don't have my calendar, so I'm not, what is everyone thinking?
Oh, you don't have yours? Okay.
Week of the 16th is best for me if we,
After the 16th?
The week of the 16th.
Oh, the week of the
yeah.
16th. I actually think the 19th might work.
Yeah, that works.
Why don't we say the 19th and hope that everybody is here and healthy and
Chief, we don't need anything before then, do we?
I don't envision that we would need.
well, the next week out. I know I can't on the 12th, so I'm going to say the 19th is the winner.
Okay.
All right, with that, we are adjourned.